like, I've been on caffeine so much, I've been just drinking this constantly. So.
You do realize that's caffeine. That is caffeine.
I know it's caffeine. No, people are like, oh, I'm an alcoholic. No. Here, I know how to start this panel. Hi, my name is Jack Buchanan, and I'm a popaholic. Okay, here they come. Trolling the dungeon. Is this thing even on? Trolling the dungeon. Thought you should know. Yeah. So, yeah, guys. I guess welcome to the YouTube panel. I guess this is just kind of us discussing in terms of how YouTube works and everything. My name is Jack Buchanan. I run a channel called BigJackFilms. I've been on the site for about a decade. I have over 5,000 subscribers. Got a bit of a cult following. My main focus on my channel is doing movie reviews, skits, and fan films and everything. So just started off for fun, but now I just do it as a profession because it is my full-time job now. So there's that. And yes, this is some of my content that you'll be able to see on my channel as well. So kind of goofy, kind of corny. I get better the cringe stuff, but it's the good kind of cringe. So
is there any bad kind of cringe?
I do like to play on the whole waifu humor a bit on my show, so you'll see that a lot in my show, but it's played for laughs, like it is played for laughs. Like most people are, it's kind of weird because it's like, most of the time people are like, oh that's weird, but it's like, I like to take the next level, per se, on my show, but the way my show works is basically, think any kind of particular movie review, crossed with like a fan film meets Roger Rabbit, where it's like, I'm like Bob Hoskins, but instead of cartoon characters, I have to interact with a bunch of anime characters. So I'll get people to do like the special effects and everything, and I'm very special effects heavy on my content. So
I guess it's my turn to talk. Hey guys, I'm Jay. I'm from Mega J Retro. I do a lot of anime retro reviews and pop culture reviews. A lot of stuff that a lot of people know me for, stuff like Force 5, Star Ventures, Grandizer. Of course, I think most of you guys here are too young, except for maybe Norm. Starman, Star Blazers, Robotech, things like that. All the old cool retro anime stuff. If you guys haven't seen any retro anime, I do suggest it. It's really great stuff. You guys are really going to enjoy it. And of course, you can look to my channel for any reviews. And yeah, we're just here to talk a little bit about how I guess we got started, Jack.
Yeah, we're just started.
And you know, any questions that anybody has, if they'd like to, just throw up your hand. And if you have any questions about starting YouTube channels or what it takes, or you know how things go, you know, feel free to ask. So, yeah, basically, how did you get started, Chad?
I actually started right when YouTube was really getting up there. I think because it launched what 2005, 2006, and at the time I was just starting high school. I was around 2006. I started to discover things like Google Video and early days of YouTube and everything, and one of my biggest, because before that I was just making movies. That was just kind of my thing. I'd take my parents' video camera and I would just make little movies with friends on the weekend. So if you watch the show Home Movies, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But essentially YouTube started, and I think it was like around the time people, like the biggest pioneer I could say that really got a lot of people into the review, not only the reviewing industry, but the gaming culture was the Angry Video Game Nerd. He really, I think, James is honestly the pioneer of a lot of content that you see online. So not just reviews, but the gaming industry would not be on YouTube as it is without his content. So around 2007, second year in high school, I actually just jumped immediately right on the platform. I started by making like really cruddy Lego stop motion animated films, and like they were, like, I look back at them and I'm like, wow, these are terrible. But I had some, in terms of having a 12-year experience, I have gotten those early successful stuff where I know nowadays for a lot of YouTubers it is a lot more difficult, especially how the system works. But I jumped on it right away, so like I had a bit of success with some of my Lego shorts. Actually, my Lego Jaws film, first time I ever got over 1 million views on something, and so on. But around, so I started just doing like little animated films, like stop motion, and then around 2010, 2011, I made a trip to California, went to Universal, and I decided I really want to do a feature. So I started getting better technology. I had a Sony 720p Handycam. I had a laptop and everything, and I just started making like films, like live action stuff with friends that involved a lot of special effects work. And during that time, I was actually really thought about doing my own set of reviews. So I just started doing that around 2013, and I've been going on 4 seasons straight now. And I just, as you see here, this is actually my 100th episode. I did a review of Dragon Ball Evolution for the 10th anniversary, because that was actually my first movie review was in 2009. Using old like Windows Movie Maker and stuff back in the day. Ask your grandparents' kids.
Good old times.
Yeah, so, but they're very special effects heavy, and when you start off, one of the tips I will say, when you start off, you will struggle a little bit in trying to finding what your niche is, because every reviewer has a niche, I would say. And basically, you basically gotta find where your footing is, and then come up with your rules of your world and everything in between that. So, well, I have, I did one feature from like 2011 to 2016, cost me $4,000 to make, and it was done on weekends with friends. And afterwards, because I was so heavy on my review show, I wanted to keep doing that because I had a real passion for that. But one of the things I was able to do was actually find a way to tell the stories I wanted to tell through my reviews by coming up with plot points and so on. So like, say I want to make a Star Wars fan film. Instead of just making a fan film, I'll incorporate it into the show and just have whatever production elements I have at my disposal. And the trick is to make it, I do everything cheap and easy, essentially, so.
We have a question.
I mean, you kind of glossed over that you spent $4,000 on a video. What video was it?
It was, well, it's funny, it was aside from being known as BigJackFilms on YouTube, I'm also credited as the King Kong guy. Because that is my obsession. Film obsession is that entire history of movies and how they're made. So, around 2010, I went to Universal and I went on like the backlog tour, and Universal was one of my biggest inspirations to make films. Even as a kid, I went to Florida. So, I thought, I want to remake this movie, but like give it my own style, my own spin on it, and looking at the history of stuff, like I could have taken a little bit of that and a little bit of that. So, yeah, it cost me $4,000, 6 years spending it with friends on weekends in the summer out in the woods, just running around pretending there's like dinosaurs chasing after you. And, add and a lot of the special effects I did was mostly practical. So things like the dinosaurs were all done in like stop motion claymation, like the old Harryhausen movies. Kong was a guy in a suit. We built a full scale arm that would come in and grab people, so we built that. And it was just a lot of like trial and error. It really was essentially a test, a special effects test. So, to quote Bill Murray in Ghostbusters, successful test. So because of my learning experience there and also working with green screen and everything, I'm able to improve into the show and make the effects that you see now are a lot more better than what I could do back in 2011. So it really was a learning curve.
So you spent 6 years working on it?
Yeah, I spent 6 years, cost me $4,000 out of my own pocket money. I had to take like 2 or 3 jobs to accompany the budget.
Well, through the 6 years, I mean, even 2 years, like video editing and like special effects, your skills is like exponentially jump. So you have to keep going back.
Yeah, especially like, and when you're committed to something that big, because that's the thing. I will admit, the original cut of the movie I had when I put it all together after shooting was about 4.5 hours, and I had to cut that down to 2.5. So for me, like in terms of when you're committed to something like that, and you start looking up the history of it and everything, you get really addicted. It's like a drug. Like you get really addicted to every single detail. So because I was shooting this movie, I started doing my reviews on all the Kong movies, and then that's what actually got me a lot of popularity online, was being the one who really covered the entire history and mythology of the character, from films, media, rip-offs, spin-offs, and so on, just everything you could imagine. And that, another tip too is when you cover one thing, people are going to want you to cover another thing. So when I cover Kong, the people obviously say, oh, cover Godzilla, and I'm like, that's not my real territory. I know better reviewers who can do that. I wouldn't mind collabing with them if there's Kong involved, but I'm not going to do anything Godzilla related because, one, I think there's too many of those movies and stuff in the media, and two, you don't want to have to commit to one thing when you're already on another thing. So, there's that.
Wow, it makes my career a little bit, seem small. I'm just kidding. In terms of like my channel, I think Jack has a very, you're much more creative in terms of like your commitment level and a lot of things like that. For me, quite literally, I'm just lazy. So, you know, I just stay in my room, right? Yeah, pretty much, right? I just stayed in my room, put up a camera, and I don't know, one day I just got bored and started talking. Not really bored. You know what it was? I just sort of like found a camera, and I said, you know what, I want to talk about some of the old anime which I used to love as a kid. And I said to myself, all right, you know what, I just want to talk about these things. And I wasn't really looking for an audience or anything like that. I was just looking to see if anybody shared the kind of things that I enjoy. So if you look at my very first video, it's just me in front of the camera, just doing a review about Force 5 and Star Avengers and Grandizer, Space Coutiers, Guy King, and Vanguard Ace. And I shot the whole thing in one pass. I basically just recanted all my memories about, you know, this huge anime, well, I didn't know it was anime at the time, but just 5 cartoons which I really loved. I did in one shot. I didn't know how to lock my camera. I didn't know anything. You can see that it comes in and out of focus all the time. It was really crazy. But you know, I spoke from the heart, and I really just wanted to start talking about, you know, this great little these little shows that nobody seems to be talking about, right? And to my surprise, 10 people started messaging me, 20 people started messaging me, and all of a sudden, like, you know, hundreds of people started actually watching and commenting on my videos. And that shocks the hell out of me. I mean, like, it's really crazy to think that, you know, you creating something of small content, just anything you want, but if you're really passionate about it, people seem to resonate with what it is that you're doing, just like you, John. And that is really what's encouraged me to keep going. The fact that other people really enjoy like the same things that I enjoy. And because of that, I have actually fun doing these things, and I really do it mostly for the fun of it. Right? Like, Jack, you have about 5,000, 6,000 subscribers.
Yeah,
right?
and that's been building up over time.
Exactly. So for me, I'm up to about 1,300 subscribers right now. And for me, every single one of those subscribers means a lot to me. The reason being is because, like, I didn't even think one person was going to watch my shows. I figured, you know, I'm just talking to myself for the most part. And that's really what I did, yeah.
When you first started, like, people started trickling in, those are pretty obscure shows. Did you, like, advertise it at all? You know, like, anything going to
So,
I think what it means, like, sharing.
No, I know what I was looking for. At first, literally, I didn't care. I was literally just talking to myself. Like, I wanted to put something in an archive because I wanted to remember. Because, you know, I'm getting older right now and I forget things, right? So I just wanted to remember these crazy things that I used to watch. And then once people started commenting and started, you know, saying, hey, that was my favorite show when I was growing up, I totally remember that. Then, you know what, I sort of, for whatever reason, I think, and it wasn't to do with the first 5 videos that I did, because technically what I did was I did one whole video and just talked about things 5 different times, and then I split it up into 5 videos, right? But after that, for whatever reason, I said, you know what, let's see what happens with this, because everybody else is making a channel. Why don't I make a channel? So then I started to say, okay, fine, my next video, so I didn't advertise, if you're asking about advertising videos, no, I never advertised the first 5 stuff, but when I did my next, like, 10 videos, I started letting people know on forums and letting people know on Facebook and stuff like that. But you know what, I find that doesn't really work that great. I find that people have to find your stuff organically, and once they start finding it, you get real followers, right? The people who sort of find you because you're telling people, hey, check out my video, that kind of thing, on different social medias and social forums, it doesn't really stick. Those guys will watch your show for a bit and then they'll just drop right off, right? You really have to find the audience that really resonates with your stuff. So if that's the question you have. Yeah.
Another tip I actually wanted to point out, in terms of you bring that up, like sharing it through social media, it depends on who you're sharing it with. Like, one of the things I try to do is, because I do have a bit of a cult following, and I know there's other YouTubers and creators out there like you, Jay, and they don't get as much of a following, like, because they're kind of like put under the radar. I try to get them on the radar. So like small-time YouTubers I know that probably only have like 50 to like 20 subscribers, but they have really good content. I'll actually ask them if I can like distribute their content on my website, which is BigJackFilms.com, and it kind of acts as kind of a set of side creators that help, you know, get the website running. So it's always good to help also the little guy, especially like if you have a following and you know these people have potential for talent. So sharing it around also really helps. If you know a buddy who's trying to get out there, like spreading it around definitely helps. So I know exactly what you mean. And it's also like, I think the other question is too, is like, I have two for you. One, do you use scripts? And two, have you been able to monetize your content yet?
So, just furthering on your point though, Jack has been generous to actually serve some of my content on his website. And I truly do believe that some of the hits that I get and some more interested parties come from Jack's actual reach. And you know, collaborations are really great, but it's always that one thing where, you know, as long as you do it properly, and again, let people discover who you are, it really works out great. So, you know, thanks Jack for that, by the way. So, just to answer the two questions you had, I don't know if anybody knows here or if anybody's a content creator or not, but for a while, it was carte blanche. You could do pretty much whatever you wanted to on YouTube. There used to be a vetting process way back, like 5 years ago, something like that, where YouTube would actually try and say, okay, you have this many views, you have this many subscribers, we're going to offer you a partnership. Then about 3 years later, they pretty much opened it up to everybody.
They fired a lot. Essentially, it was a big.
Well, hold on. Anybody could become a content creator. That was like 3 years after that. But then, now recently,
Best disclaimer ever, by the way, Jack.
they've actually started closing the gates,
Yeah,
right?
because
So,
I think because there was one too many people. Because I kind of know how YouTube works. Is that one, there were too many people getting monetized. I think it was just a little overcrowded, and I think YouTube maybe couldn't even afford it. They couldn't afford to pay so many people, so they limited it now to where if you have over 1,000 subscribers and then a certain amount of view time, then you're eligible to get monetized. Me, I was actually in the clear, thankfully, because I already had like about 1,000 to 2,000 when it's last started. But a lot of my friends who were making money on YouTube actually essentially got fired. They got laid off. It was a big layoff, essentially, of smaller content creators. So in doing so, like for example, a friend of mine, Studio 95, who does these great game reviews, he got the end of the shaft. He got pretty much kicked out. So I've been helping him by distributing actually a lot of his videos on my channel, and then like I made a deal with him. It's like I give him like 10% of whatever my ad revenue is. So yeah, that's the thing. So like you gotta also find your niche and find your audience, and once you start realizing you've got a bit of potential, like you've got a lot of people starting to follow you, then you boost that. You keep pushing yourself to where you try to reach that 1,000 subscribers and the wait time. Now, a little tip too, when you start getting monetized, the first paycheck is actually pretty big, because I think what they do is they add up all your previous intentions and then they give you like a big thing, because that's what happened to me. I got like, I think when I started monetizing at around season 3, I actually got like about $300 to $400 on my first check, because I think they were making up for some previous efforts. But really when you start off, the first paycheck's good, but then it's gonna go down a little bit. Like right now I make about 150 to 200 a month through ad revenue, but it's because I try to put out something at least once, twice, 3, 5 times a week to make ends meet, essentially. So yeah, and in terms of how that works, that's essentially what it is.
So I think though, Jack, you came into YouTube like a lot early. Obviously, you're an early adopter.
Yeah.
Things were. I'm not gonna say that. I think that there's a misconception that things were easier back in the day.
Yeah.
I don't think that's right. I think that just like anything else, because you were an early adopter, it was easier to find you, maybe. But in terms of like, you still have to make good content. It still has to be entertaining, right? And I think that's really the difference. But you know, talking about my experience, just like you said, so I was already a partner for about almost 2 years, right? And then this sort of like gate started closing, and anyone who's under 1,000 subscribers was told, yeah, if you don't have 1,000 subscribers and a certain number of views, we're going to demonetize. We're going to unpartner you, right? So you're going to have to reapply after you hit a certain threshold. And of course, we all know now that the threshold is 1,000 subscribers and at least 10,000 views per month.
Or like 100 hours.
Something like that, right? And it was funny because I hadn't made any money. Like, you know, you're saying you make a little. Your first check was like $300, right? Yeah. So in the 2 years that I had been on YouTube, I hadn't made a single penny. Okay. And then all of a sudden, it's funny because after the monetization gap got closed, took 3 months, but I went from like 850 to just over 1,000 subscribers, and then I reapplied for a status, and all of a sudden I got accepted again. And it's funny because that's the day I got my first paycheck, which was the minimum payout for YouTube. I don't know if anybody knows this, but it's $100.
$100
right?
threshold before you can pull it out.
Yeah, before you pull it out. So basically, that was both hilarious for me and ridiculous at the same time. Having said that though, it's funny where you get your views and your hits. Like, my main content is retro reviews, games, convention reviews, things like that. But the most number of hits I've ever received, and I continue to receive, was a video I did, which I had no idea was going to do this, but it was a video about ordering online on Alibaba. That was my biggest video to date. It's still my biggest video. It gets monthly. It still gets about 2,000 hits. Daily. It still gets about 2,000 hits. Yeah, and 2,000 views. But it's just something that people are looking for interesting things. And this video which I did which was an unboxing it was 65 Harry Potter wands ordered from AliExpress or from Alibaba. And people are fascinated by that because I guess a lot of people are curious about ordering overseas and how does the process work and will you get scammed and what happens with the shipping, right? And in that video, I actually show that about, I'd say, 50% of my product got damaged in shipping, right? So like half the box was crushed, but I still made the best of it, right? And yeah, a lot of people were appreciative of that information, right? Now, it has nothing to do with my regular content. My regular content is all about retro reviews and pop culture reviews. But this one video has able to continue to keep me afloat and is actually the one reason why I still haven't been able to monetize my content. It's really strange.
That's actually something you bring up too. Like, my biggest hit right now on YouTube is my remake of Kong, which runs about 2.5 hours, and it's got over, I want to say it's at 400,000 to 500,000 views. And there's a couple more that I've been picking up. But before, it was released earlier on an older channel, but what the problem was is that because I was using copyrighted music, it couldn't get monetized. That's another thing. Copyright is kind of a little complicated when it comes to YouTube, and it's really difficult to try to figure that out. So that's why one of the things I do is, so I knew I wanted to get that video monetized because it was getting a bunch of hits. So what I did was I took it and I did a bit of re-editing on it, but I hired actually a composer to do an original score for me, and I also used stock music that's in public domain. So I put it on there, and now I have it monetized, and I haven't had a problem for about almost a year. And that's what's been also helping me earn stuff. And that's the thing too. So like as a reviewer, that's your biggest worry is to when you're reviewing something, especially when you're using clips like I am. How you basically have to how you have it fall under fair use, because fair use is very limited on YouTube, I'll be honest. So one of the things I do is instead of just taking a movie and I have all the clips and I just play the entire clip, I'll actually abridge, I'll actually edit the scene so where it cuts a little quicker, so it avoids the content. So like, say you have a scene of like, I don't know, in this movie where like Goku's fighting a bunch of bullies, instead of just like showing the whole sequence, you want to abridge it, essentially. So maybe make every shot last about either between 1 second to 3 seconds per shot, because I think the normal rate of a shot is about 10, 20 seconds, depending on the content. So you want to cut that down. You want to just make quick cuts, so it avoids any detection by the bots or manually claimed. Occasionally, depending on your content, if you need to show an example of the scene that's in it, again, you want to abridge it, but make it where you get the point across. And one thing I also want to bring up with monetization, the best way to get a bit more cash in your pocket is to actually pad out your video a little bit. Because the rule is you can mark down where you want ads to go if it's longer than 10 minutes. So one of the things I do is I try to, again, I pad it out with either extra information on a film or something I'm reviewing, or if it's story-driven like this, like I'll add a whole sequence that doesn't drive from the narrative, it gets the point across, but it is, it does make it a bit tad longer. So that's one of the things I've actually been doing now is actually making them a bit longer. When I write scripts for my reviews, and I know the rule of film is 1 page of script equals 1 minute of screen time. So normally my scripts end up being between like 10 to 20, sometimes 40 pages, depending on the video.
Sure.
So that's one of the things you want to do too, is just find ways to kind of essentially cheat the system, kind of like get it where you can avoid being detected. Thankfully, I've only gotten claims, but the studios have actually been fair to me because they share revenue. And sometimes even like, the only time I ever got, this is a funny story, the only time I ever got a copyright strike, this is the first time I got a strike, it was about a year ago. And it was for this movie I reviewed called The Mighty Kong, which was this 1998 animated musical version of King Kong that was released by Warner Brothers, but it was done by an independent company called the Lana Film Corp. It has Jodie Benson and Dudley Moore in its last movie. And they got the Sherman Brothers to write the songs. It's pretty bad though. It's really bad, and I kind of bashed the movie, but this review had been out for like a couple of years. So then all of a sudden I check my YouTube and I get a copyright strike for the movie. I'm like, who claims this? Like this movie, like this company should be gone for years, right? Because they don't exist anymore. It's been 20 years. And yeah, apparently somebody who runs the Lana Film Company, apparently they're still around, claimed it, not because of copyright, but because they didn't like my review, because I bashed it. And that's another thing that really sucks for content creators. If you're reviewing something and you want to express your opinion that it sucks, and the studio see that, they won't take it down because of copyright. They'll say, it'll pretty much imply they just didn't like your review. You know, wham, poor me, you made fun of me. But that's the thing, if you can't handle criticism, it's like, shouldn't be making videos in the first place. So, it's essentially something to also keep an eye on.
You know, yeah, the gray area of copyright is, it's a bit ambiguous because you're supposed to legally be able to use certain things under fair use, but the problem is that when you get into like bots and artificial intelligence trying to understand what's fair and what's not, it's no longer utilizing good judgment in terms of like what's a YouTube channel, what are YouTubers trying to do with your stuff. Now it becomes a bot saying, oh, I identify this as a part of my something that I own, so now I'm going to strike you. And then there are ways to combat that, and you can do a claim against it. But previously it was easier because it was kind of like you versus the company. Nowadays, it's you versus the company, but it's also under, I think, a couple of people who have to decide who YouTube sides with. And if you lose that arbitration, you get a second strike. So it's really, in terms of like fair, yeah, it's a gamble. So would you rather, and in some ways you don't really want to take that gamble. Sometimes it's better just to take the video down, re-edit it, right? To a certain way that the algorithm likes it, right? The actual bots, the way they like it, and then let it go. And I've done that a couple times. I've actually re-edited my episodes and actually have been approved, only to have it 3 years down the road be evaluated and claimed again, right? And then we have the dubious nature of manual reviews. So I actually had a video which was continuously taken down time after time after time, and it wasn't a bot. It was actually the actual company who owned it. So the video was for Silent Dubious, the motion picture, which it's a pretty old anime. It's about like 10 years old now, and it's the original movie that came out like in 2000. I think it was like 1998, something like that. And I did the review on that. It was up for like a good month and a half, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I got a copyright strike. And and you can see who actually flagged your video. And instead of it saying, YouTube has identified this as belonging to blah blah blah, no, this literally said this was a manual review by somebody who gave you a copyright strike. So then I said, okay, you know what, I'm going to re-edit it like I always do with all my videos, just to make it seem as if it's a different video entirely. uploaded again. This time in like a week, it got taken down again, manual review. So, and then that's the problem because depending on what happens, if you get an actual copyright strike, which I've never actually had. I've had one strike, but it wasn't because of copyright, it was because of something different. But if you accumulate 3 strikes, you're out completely.
Yeah,
They will completely ban you. It's the craziest thing. So yeah, there's always pros and cons to being a YouTuber, but at the same time, it's just like the legality of it, I think, is a little bit unfair. There's no real arbitration. You pretty much are at the hands of whichever group has decided to either target you, and you don't really have a chance to defend yourself. So it's kind of weird. But if you stray along a certain line, things are good for you, I guess, if you will, right? But you know what? The way I've always looked at it, if you enjoy what you do and the content that you do is what you like, keep doing it. It doesn't matter, right? Even if somebody like takes down your video for whatever reason, that's fine. There are more videos to be made. Don't give up. It's basically just, you know, it's your vision, what you love, what you're passionate about.
One thing I did want to bring up too, and this is actually a tricky thing, is that with copyright especially, is that the copyright law in terms of the internet is pretty much an open canvas that anybody can do whatever they want, and it really depends on, like, copyright is different per country. That's why you see a lot of reviews for things made in Japan, especially anime, are more quick to be taken down than something that you review that's from American shores. And that's because, I don't know the full details, but it's just from my perspective, it just feels like Japan is not, they're very heavily protective of their copyrights, so maybe in a way they don't really believe in fair use, or they think it's like a little limited than what it is here. So if, say, like, because thankfully this review has never gotten taken down from Toei or anything, which, because I think it like falls under like a line where I'm not really using so much of footage. But at the same time, I knew a guy who did the review of the same movie and Toei got him. But it was because, like, it's weird how it works, because it's like, yeah, like they kind of don't believe in fair use a little bit, or maybe they're just a bit more strict about it or limited.
Actually, you know, I think it's actually more the American anime companies. I actually don't think it's I think the Japanese are actually a little bit more lenient.
I've seen a couple of the Japanese companies really take harden down. Like even
Which ones are you talking about?
I know a guy who reviewed My Neighbor Totoro and Studio.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That was Disney.
No, it was Studio Ghibli. It was the Japanese company, not the American company.
Even when the claim is happening, it tells you who is the owner.
Yeah, and that's what it was.
I'm almost certain it's Disney who actually got it.
Yeah. And like even Nintendo, there was a recent article that a lot of old school video game music and everything was taken down because of a cease and desist by Nintendo from Japan. So it's for me in a way it's almost like sort of an invasion of another, like, so say you're reviewing something here in this, like, somebody's reviewing something in the United States and then Japan claims that, that's sort of a form of invasion, isn't it? Like, in a way?
Because, okay, so, again, one of the things about that is that Nintendo, even since the beginning, back in the 80s, Nintendo's been fiercely protective of its property. But, you know, if we're going to get to the video game realm, that has to do with the video game crash of, you know, 79, right? Because, sorry, it was like 79, 82, something like that. But, you know, because Atari had pretty much let anybody do whatever they want, you know, nobody wanted video games, they were all garbage. So, you know, Nintendo revived, in 1985, Nintendo revived, you know, the video game scene. So Nintendo at the time, you know, Nintendo stable quality, all these different factors that came into it, they're fiercely protective of their property. So that I think has to do a lot with history, right? Because if you look at like Sega, for example, you know, everyone is in terms of the way they market it, it's all about the social aspect of it. You know, the things like, you know, Sega does what Nintendo. You know, they're trying to be different than Nintendo. They need the fan favorite aspect of it. They need their fans to be happy about what they do. So the way Nintendo does it with, you know, litigation and trying to take people down and all this other crazy things, you know, Donkey Kong versus, you know, Universal, you know, exactly, that's what I brought up. So, you know, all these crazy things, right? That's because of the history of Nintendo, right? The way they are as a company. But in terms of like anime in general, I really do think the Japanese are sort of like more uninterested in what people do. They actually don't mind the reviews. But I think that whenever you see a copyright strike, it's usually on a North American licensed product, almost exclusively. Because I remember when there was just a whole bunch of different animes, and this goes into the fan sub scene as well. Again, I do a lot of different reviews and stuff like that, right? When Bleach wasn't even licensed yet, and people were just doing fan sub after fan sub after fan sub, right? Nobody was putting copyright strikes on anything. But as soon as, I think it was Viz, as soon as they picked it up, automatically things started going like dark. Like nobody could talk about it, nobody could review it. It was crazy.
I wanted to bring that up too, because that you bring up an interesting point, because I know a bit of insight on this story I'm going to tell. So, I don't know if anybody's aware, but when Dragon Ball Z Kai got to the final chapters, which was the Buu Saga, and if any of you know watch Dragon Ball Z, when they're at the tournament, there's a scene where they recreate the Cell games, and they're all in like mascot heads. And what happened was, for the Kai dub, Funimation had actually reached out to Team 4-Star, who do the show Dragon Ball Z Bridge on YouTube, and which in my opinion is like one of the best fan dubs ever. So they had brought them on as a little Easter egg for fans, because the fans were really picking up on the Abridged series, to come do the voices of their characters as these mascots. Now, they had put out a preview for the episode about a week prior, and people were starting to catch on at what was going on. And Funimation was very kind of quiet about it, because the problem is that Toei hates Team 4-Star. Like, this is why they've always gotten copyright claims, because Toei is just not liking what they're doing with their property, even though it's hilarious. So, word got out. It was leaked from somebody at Funimation who told Toei that they were doing this. And about 48 to 24 hours before the episode was going to air, Toei contacted Funimation and said, "We don't like these people. If you air this version, you can't work on Dragon Ball anymore." So basically, because they were under contract and everything, they had no choice, and they had to take an older dub they did for the original series and insert that into the aired episode. But that Team 4-Star bit was actually leaked online eventually, but it just kind of sucks, because really, it's just the fact that studios don't. I think it's because there's times that fans actually will look at like a parody spoof or something and say, "Wow, that was actually better than the actual show." So I think studios get really offended by that. Like, another example is like when there was the petition to remake The Last Jedi, and I don't know why, because the problem is fans are not producers. Yes, you'll go see their content, but at the same time, you're not running the show. You're not a producer, like whatever. I think for some fans, they think they do, because they have the fan fiction in their head. So when I see the petition and the Indiegogo campaigns to remake The Last Jedi, and like they're getting all the money and everything, and I'm like, instead of asking the studio to remake it, why don't you take that money and remake it yourself? I mean, that's what I did when I remade Kong, because there were some parts about the Peter Jackson remake that came out at the time that I wasn't a fan of. So I thought, why don't I just take that element that I like and tell it, and actually myself tell it, so for people who haven't seen it or have discovered it. So for people who say, I wanted the movie to be like this and that, make it yourself. There's nothing wrong, like fan films are some of the best flattery I think a franchise can get, but I always have been a fan of the fan film retellings of certain stories, because you can tell the same thing, but you can give your own spin on it.
Well, yeah. See, but now we're getting into the areas of fan fiction and fan films, right?
Yeah.
And you know what?
Jump on one thing about that.
That's a dangerous area to get into, because not dangerous in so much that parodies are considered legal, right? So that's why Funimation has such a problem with the Abridged series, right? Sorry, not Funimation, Toei. That's why Toei has such a problem with the Abridged series, because it's a property that they can no longer control, right? Because it's within fair use, because it's a parodied work, right? They can't legally do anything about it. And the Team 4-Star is getting tons of hits and getting really popular. But the problem is that, and it falls back to Japanese traditions and things like that you should respect the property, you should be, it shouldn't be messed with. But at the same time, you now have a whole generation of fans who really love the Abridged series. So, it crosses that line for you. But then, you take a look at something Like for instance, Star Trek fan films.
Oh yeah, that whole
Right?
show.
And now we have the issue where Paramount now has written an actual guide on how much. Well, it's crazy. It's like ridiculous. It's like, yeah, you're free to do a fan film, but you have to do it under our guidelines. And then you're like, okay, fine, I'll do it under your guidelines. Perfect, right? I'll buy the costumes, the crappy costumes you guys make, right? I'll go buy the canon that you guys created. I won't go past certain things or whatever. But then you know what? The one that really kills you at the end of the day is you cannot raise money you cannot raise money to make your films, right? You can only raise maximum of $10,000, and then anything after that is not legally allowed. That's ridiculous. And you know, it falls down to the idea that for the longest time, no one was making Star Trek, or at least Star Trek people wanted to watch. And now all of a sudden, fans are making better Star Trek than Paramount was.
And I actually want to point out, because Discovery just came out, and this Star Trek Discovery came out. Now, I'm not a big Star Trek fan, I just know from what I've seen. And from what I heard, the fan film that got in a lot of trouble, that got over $1 million budget, they had this concept and idea they wanted to do, so Paramount shut them down, put these guidelines in place, and then took that idea and put it into Discovery. They stole their idea. So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, I look at studios sometimes and I'm like, why don't you work with the fans? Like, why don't you take a group of fans, especially YouTubers, and that are huge fans of this content, know what they're talking about, and put them in charge because they know what the audiences want. I mean, I look at it, there's a YouTuber by the name of Black Nerd Comedy who is hilarious, I love that guy, Andre, and he's a huge Power Rangers fan. And it got to the point he was discussing about it so much that Saban, when they did a online podcast sort of game series based on Power Rangers, they hired Andre to be one of the main Power Rangers, and now in the canon series, he's one of the official Rangers, and that is called the fans winning. And another thing I want to bring up is the fact that when it comes to like, what do you call it, like funding like from fans and everything, it is a little bit of a gamble because you don't want, because I've learned not to make that public. Like whatever project I'm working on, I'm like J.J. Abrams, I keep it all in the mystery box until release, or at least when a trailer comes out, because at least what you could do is like when I self-finance all my projects, I self-finance it, I make it, I keep it very quiet, and then I have a trailer, because at least when a trailer's out, I have a full cut of the film and I've already made it. And at least if it gets taken down, at least I didn't feel like I wasted my time. That I had fun making it, and I'm able. So any project I do now, that's why I'm actually afraid to do crowdfunding, especially if it's like a franchise-driven thing. I'd rather do it on essentially underground filmmaking, so we're doing it all off the grid, and then only releasing it to the public when it's done. Is normally how I work nowadays.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's one of these things where now these studios are basically saying you can't do it unless we say it's okay, and that's terrible. You know what I mean? Like, people should be able to express what they love to do and why they do it. And it's just a ridiculous kind of idea. In terms of the crowdsourcing idea, I mean, it's obvious that fans are hungry for this content. They love the ideas, they love the things that other people are doing. And the real problem is that these studios have content, or have properties which people want and love, but they, for whatever reason, put them in the shelf and like leave it there for 20 years. And then, you know, it's until somebody else decides, oh, you know what, this is a good property to get back into, let's do it. But now we have any number of creators out there who have great ideas and are trying to do this on their own. And, you know, it's those things which get followings, they get bigger and better, and then as soon as they get to a certain point, like as soon as they get a million followers, and as soon as they start saying, oh wow, this is actually a property which is worth something, all of a sudden the studio jumps in and says, you know what, we want this back, we're going to shut you down, and we're going to start doing it ourselves. And that's crazy.
Yeah, and I want to bring this up too, because like, as an example, because I've always wanted to be a filmmaker, and I always wanted to work in Hollywood and be in the business and everything, producer, director, be essentially a Spielberg, because like, I admire the guy. But I actually, about a year ago, ended up being in a TV series, reality TV show. So it was kind of my real first taste of how the business is. And quite frankly, as much as it was a good like learning experience, I didn't care for how it was run because they started dictating, because like even a reality show, because you gotta remember honestly with reality shows, they're probably worse, they're probably as, if not more fake than something like wrestling. Like, I don't, okay, nothing against wrestling, wrestling's fine, or whatever, like, I mean, just, that's the thing. But like, things like The Bachelor, how it's more fake than wrestling, how is that possible?
I think the term you're looking for is work.
Yeah, it's staged, like, it's staged.
Work.
Yeah, it's work.
That's work. The reality shows, yeah, they are very heavily work.
Yeah, like, yeah, yeah, so for me it's like, when I did this show, I thought, okay, they're just gonna do a documentary about me, they're gonna show me how it works, and they're gonna just film something, like have the cameras on me, and I'm just gonna do my thing. But then they start giving you scripts, and they start telling you what to say and what to do, and really I didn't care for that, so eventually, and here's the thing, because like I was thinking, okay, this is gonna be my breakthrough in getting into the business. Turns out that wasn't the case, and in reality, my biggest success is really YouTube and on the online community, and I think for a lot of people, especially in the business now, they're actually moving to the online world because the Hollywood world refuses to change. What I mean by that is I mean the whole stuff with Weinstein and everything, like, because the people working in Hollywood want it to change. But in reality, it's probably not going to, so everybody's going to move to a different platform to express themselves. It's the equivalent of when Hollywood started, Thomas Edison, the fraud he was, had basically set up all these rules and guidelines in the early days of cinema that they have to be filmed like this and that, and that were essentially destroyed. So a lot of filmmakers didn't like these rules and they fled west to create Hollywood. But now they're the ones who are making all the rules and regulations, so now all the independent people are now moving to something else, which is the online world. So I think that's where the future of real filmmaking and television and everything is going to go, into the online community, because it's really the best place to get discovered on any platform, essentially.
Yeah, you know, there are so many different avenues now that you have available to you. You know, Amazon Prime, you know, different places where you can start submitting work. You can start another YouTube channel, you can do Twitch. You know, YouTube itself has started to slowly close the gap. It's really weird. But at the end of the day, it's never been better or easier to be a creator and, you know, express yourself in the way you want to. Like, make the content that you want to make. Again, I've always been a proponent of do it and, you know, see what happens. Because if people like what you have to say, or if, you know what, at the end of the day, it's if you like what you're creating and you have a passion for it, then just do it. You know, there's nobody stopping you. It's only you who's actually making that assertion and that problematic, if anything. I guess we're down to about 10 minutes, so if anybody has any questions, you know, I guess we can what's up?
Reality show.
What reality show?
Yeah.
Oh, what reality show were you at, Jim?
It was a show that was on TVO. Basically, I was on this show, and yeah, it was a good learning curve, like, I'll admit, in terms of how the business works. Because I took it in a way, not about the filmmaking tactics, but more about how the system works. And quite frankly, the system, even there, is broken. And it's like, there's better revenues to kind of find and be discovered in a sense. But I'd much rather stick to the YouTube community and make my films and movies on there and release them there, because it's easier to get discovered online than it is to enter in a film festival nowadays. So.
Anybody else? It's okay, don't be shy.
I don't really have much, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean,
I did learn a lot.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I will actually point out, in terms of like tips, in terms of making videos and too, everything is, for me, is on a budget. So one of the things I actually do is I obviously self-finance everything myself. And one of the things you want to do, if you want to make YouTube your job, that's all good. But at least make sure you have a job on the side to cover in case YouTube doesn't work. I mean, when I was making my film, I actually was working at a Little Caesar shaking the sign around like every few days for like 4 or 5 hours to make ends meet on the budget. So for me, one of the things I do is whenever I film something, I do try to find cheap alternatives. One of the shows I actually do now is I do DIYs on how to build props. So, for example, I made the whole staff of Saruman for under $10. And I put that on. So now what I do is I do cosplay commissions where I'll build a prop and I'll do like, you know, a $20 labor fee plus, you know, whatever the supplies are. But the rest of the money I make, actually, I'll film everything I build and then do a tutorial on how to build online. So things like DIYs and everything, if you're making something, try to find something on the side to add to it, like behind the scenes and everything, so you can just keep pumping out as much content as physically possible. for yourself, essentially. It's also good to put out trailers and previews for what you're working on, which I like to do, to get people kind of hyped up, so, essentially.
Alright guys, so again, Jack, what's your channel's name?
My channel name is under BigJackFilms. You can also look me up as the King Kong reviews, the BigJackFilms reviews, DIYs and everything. I also have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I just got, which is super addictive. I love TikTok. It's the new Vine. So you can find me on all those platforms. I do have business cards if anybody needs one. And I also run my website, BigJackFilms.com, and Jay is on there as well. You can follow him on all social medias and stuff. But yeah, and also, honestly, I am looking for more people to work with. So if you ever want to do a collab or something, just hit me up. So.
Yeah, you can find me on, just look up MegaJ Retro on YouTube. I have a Facebook account, Twitter, Instagram, which I barely use because I'm not photogenic and nobody wants to see my face. But anyway, thanks guys for coming to the panel, really appreciate it. Please follow Jack and myself, like, subscribe, all that kind of crazy stuff, and we'll see you next time. Thank you guys.
Thank you.